Welcome to Coffee with Kyle. This is our podcast discussing issues in business and economics. This episode is generously brought to you by Rob Lozan, an alumnus of the school and Chief Investment Officer at Middlefield Limited. I'm Kyle Murray. I'm the Dean of the Laurier School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. And my guest today is Sharona Friedman. Sharona is an alumna of the Laurier BBA, also a joint MBA JD from Rotman and Faculty of Law at the University of Toronto. Sharona has a tremendous track record in higher education, including launching Chicago Booth's London, UK campus and leading marketing, recruiting, and admissions for Imperial College London. But then in 2014, Sharona joined the university campus of football business, which was the world's first university to offer undergraduate and graduate degrees in football and sports industry in London and Manchester. And today, Sharona is the president and CEO of the Global Institute of Sport. And she's expanded GIS globally, including Miami, Brussels, Sydney, and most recently, Toronto, as a partner with the Laurier School to launch the MBA concentration in sports management that'll be taught at the GIS campus at BMO Field in Toronto. This is very exciting news. Welcome, Sherry. Sharona. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
All right. Well, I've got my coffee here. So
Yeah, I'm repping Canada. I'm physically in England at the moment, but I'm always repping Canada. I've got my Tim Hortons mug, I've got BMO Field, our national stadium in the background, and I've got my Canadian accent. So I'm all
fantastic. We're good to go then. We're good to go. All right, well, let's pour into it. So I mentioned that you've had really a quite incredible career in post-secondary education, but specifically in the sports education industry. So tell us how you got started in this field and why sports education.
Yeah, it's actually I definitely think if I think back to my Laurier days, I don't think anybody would have guessed that this is where I would have ended up, which just goes to show you, you can really achieve anything or do anything. Like, you don't have to box yourself in. I was always such a fan of post-secondary education. My whole family are educators, and my grandmother actually started a chain of schools at elementary level. Um, I've always just sort of loved the world and traveling and all of that. And so I ended up working in business schools, as you pointed out, and a focus always in sort of international business schools. So I was amongst that sort of inaugural team when Chicago Booth launched their executive MBA in London, and I was very much an external voice for Imperial College around the world, doing marketing and recruitment and international partnerships. So sort of global education has just always been something that I've really valued. I love cultures. I'm Canadian. I mean, everyone in Canada is from somewhere else, and that's always been something that, like every Canadian, I'm really proud of. But I've always been like extra curious about everyone's cultures, and so yeah, so I ended up doing that as a career. But the sport part is probably the surprise. So, if you would have told people that I would have gone into, work in universities, especially I was so involved at the university at Laurier. I've got my university top on still. I'm such a, I bleed purple and gold. And I think when you experience Laurier, that is an experience that binds, right? That sort of culture of the university is so addictive, and how everybody just so is part of the community. And I think it's something I fell in love with, frankly, at Wilfrid Laurier, and then just carried with me forever. So that's not a surprise to anyone. I think that I stayed in the university sphere. The sport part is definitely shocking. As someone from Toronto, of course, I always had a Leafs jersey and a Blue Jays cap and went to Raps games. But I wasn't like a sports fanatic at all. What I was is someone who had a really good track record in international education. And so when UCFB went to open, they had a little campus in a small town called Burnley, up in northern England. And when they went to open the Wembley campus in like a big city like London, they actually found me because I was very entrepreneurial. I had an amazing business degree from Laurier. I had a good MBA. So I was obviously like a very business minded. educationalist, and they knew quite early doors it would have international legs. And so I went to the interview. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world, but I thought, I don't know anything about sport. Like, how could I possibly do this job? But truth be told, I went to the interview out of curiosity. I'm an educator. I'm always curious. I want to learn more. That's probably why you do these coffees, right? To learn more. Um, and so I went to listen because I was like, what is this? What do you mean it's a football university? Like, you know, and my interview lasted 4 hours, and then I did a consultancy for them for about 7, 8 months before I signed up. I just fell so in love with the sports industry at first sight. Not just from the perspective of a fan of the actual games, but the industry at large, and the fact that it's so dynamic. I always say it's like multi-dimensional chess with moving pieces. Like it's so dynamic and complicated. It's the only business model in the world where your business can up and down by 50 million pounds because somebody kicked a ball that went an inch too much to the left. Like it's just extreme business. It's so fascinating. But it also can change economies, right? Like, you see the shift Jamaica's just, done some amazing things in football, and you see that in the GDP. You see sport motivating people, and people are so passionate about it. So I just thought the human element of it and the excitement of the business model, and I was kind of honestly, I was hooked, and I've never looked back. 15 years. So it's yeah, big surprise, but I'm obsessed. I'm a completely sports mad now.
That's awesome. It's a good story. Yeah, and I agree. We often hear that people don't have, linear careers, right? They tend to be curves and changes, and you don't end up necessarily, most of the time you don't end up where you expect when you start out as a 18, 19-year-old. So it's really interesting to hear. I'm also fascinated by the business of sport, and I've been a sports fan my whole life, and played sports when I was younger. Um, but I always sort of was hesitant to get into the business of sports education, in part because
Because
it's
you hadn't met me yet? Why, Kyle?
well, that was a big part of what changed my mind because I think what was hard to wrap my head around was what could we bring that would be different. We can
Hmm.
we can bring the education side. We have strong educational programs. Laurier has this long history as a really top tier school in Canada and around the world. But how do you make a sports management program or a sports business program unique enough that it's worth signing up for that and not just getting an MBA or a BBA or one of the regular degrees? And so, yeah, we met a little bit over a year ago, like I think last spring, and started talking about this, and it became obvious right away that we could do something unique. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited about this partnership. Maybe tell me a little bit about how you're feeling about it, and just describe overall what it is we're jumping into here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I am a marketer at heart, so I sometimes get to superlatives, but I don't think I'm being superlative to say that this might be the thing I'm the most excited about ever. Um, I've spent over 15 years doing what I think is the ultimate model in sports education and perfecting it and honing it. And I've always, in fact, it's not just lip service. You can look at an article that I wrote, an alumni article for Laurier, oh, it must have been almost 10 years ago, that I talked about how even when I was helping shape UCFB, I was always drawing on my experience from Laurier. I always talk about that experience. It was the most transformative of my life. Yes, the quality of education at Laurier is clearly, unparalleled, but the culture is something else, and how immersive it is. Like I feel like I learned so much more at Laurier because I was involved in the Dean's Advisory Council, because I was involved on the board of the Students' Union, because I was involved in legal resources, like all these things where I was actually getting to practice boardroom skills and legal skills and all these things that I actually ended up doing in life. And that I've drawn that into the model that we use at the Global Institute of Sport. And so to have sort of almost like, you know, the inspiration for the culture that I've always wanted now to be partnered with us and creating something together is so exciting. But then to be doing it in Toronto, sure, that's very, very exciting because it's my home. But as somebody who's got a very, very global lens on sport, it's very exciting because I cannot think of a better city to have learning from, right? So being able to tap into the education, that I've experienced at Laurier, which is unbelievable, with the team at Lazaridis, who have been phenomenal, and excited the whole time at helping us build this out because you need that local context, right? We are global best practice, but also making sure that the local contextualization is there. But then being able to do it in an environment where you're surrounded with an NHL team and an MLB team and an MLS team and a Canadian football team, and like you have everything. You've got the basketball and the hockey. To have all of that learning in a city where it's actually all within one roof, right? It's all housed in one space, and to have the partnership that GIS has with TFC and all that brings in terms of the learning from what is one of the most successful and largest multi-sports owner in the world. To me, this is the trifecta of perfection, right? Like you've got everything, right? And then GIS, of course, brings to the table the global best practice. We have campuses all over the world. We draw from the best sports teams and leagues and partners in the world. So, when you're learning from us, you're also learning from the Premier League, and you're also learning from Aussie rules and, the Aussie Open and Miami and Dubai and Jamaica. So having sort of global best practice, local best practice, and an unparalleled academic backing, I think this is going to be, you know, the thing I'm the most proud of, hopefully looking back. So that's a bold statement, but I do mean it genuinely.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it as well. And I think one of the things that when I say, what would be different, not
Mm.
only do we have the Global Institute of Sport, which brings that global perspective, we also, GIS has this relationship with Toronto Football Club or Toronto FC. We're going to have the GIS campus at BMO Field where we can teach the classes. And in addition to all of that, we're going to bring our core MBA, your expertise in sport, and open up the world to our grads. So I think it's such a unique program that, yeah, I'm really excited about it. After being hesitant for years about getting into sports management as part of a business school, I think this is a really unique opportunity for students, and it's going to be such a unique experience.
There is nothing like this in the world. And our campus at BMO is Canada's only university campus dedicated solely to the business of sport. The setting is outstanding. After the World Cup, also with all the additional builds to the stadium, the campus is going to be buzzing. The campus itself is in the heart of Toronto. Amazing connectivity to the rest of the province. Amazing connectivity to sport. And so to have that as the delivery location and immersive environment for a Lazaridis MBA, the power of those two things together, it's just unbeatable. I absolutely, there's nothing like this in the world. We have no other program at GIS, and we've been, top ranked in sport for 6 years now, but we have no program at GIS that delivers this to this level. So I can't use too many superlatives. It's really exciting.
Well, and if all that wasn't enough, we're also in Toronto, as you mentioned, which is a great sports city, has all kinds of professional teams, but is also hosting some of the games from the World Cup this summer, right before we are going to launch the program with our first class in September 2026. So it's really Toronto is the place to be for sport right now, and it's wonderful for us to be launching the program, an MBA program that's going to have a concentration in sports management in the city. So yeah, very exciting.
And with all the jobs too, Kyle, that are being created, in Toronto and across Canada, um, as a result of this World Cup, as a result of all the new leagues and new teams that have been developed in the last few years, there are needs
Yeah.
for leadership to come in and really propel the industry forward. I mean, there's genuine need for these roles, and I think this partnership is going to genuinely impact the Canadian sports industry and beyond, right? I
Mhm.
think this is also a great program for people from around the world to come to because there isn't anything like this in the world. So I think domestically and internationally alike, this is a real moment for creating that pipeline of leadership and talent into one of the coolest, most exciting industries in the world.
And an industry that, as you say, is growing very rapidly.
Quite, yeah. The I think they said something like in women's sport alone, I think that they're planning to three times the number of jobs in the next few years.
Wow.
Just the growth of women's sport, the cross-pollination of new sports coming into Canada. I mean, cricket has now become a thing more in Canada, and it wasn't
Yeah.
before. You know, soccer, football is suddenly, seeing a surge. And we've seen time and time again that after a World Cup, the demand for jobs in that market are only going to grow. The great run that the Jays just had, I think the city is really on fire. And there is so much demand for talent to carry and propel that all forward. So the timing of this is amazing, but that was on purpose. I think you and I know that.
Yeah.
It was well
It's
timed.
it's well timed. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back for the timing. Yeah, so
Someone
so
has to. Someone has
that's
to.
right. Once in a while, you have to,
Yeah.
right? Every once in a while. Yeah. So to switch gears a little bit, we were talking about how great Toronto is, but you've been in the UK for a while. And how did that happen? You went from being somebody educated in Ontario, grew up in Ontario, and now you're in the UK, leading this really great, institute for sport that is global.
Yeah, again, not something anyone would have seen coming. Um, I was absolutely terrified to go to Rotman. When I left safe, lovely little Waterloo, I was absolutely terrified to go into downtown Toronto. I'm from Thornhill, like I'm from a suburb of Toronto. And yeah, I mean, I've now been to over 120 countries in the world. I've lived in 13 different cities on almost every continent. So times have changed. You know how that happened? That honestly happened. Oh, um, that honestly happened because my older brother. This is the truth. My older brother was a travel freak, and I'm very competitive. Um, so he went to Africa and Korea and Sweden and Israel, and I was like. I'm gonna, I want to come. So I tagged along at the beginning. I tagged along, and then I just kept going because I caught that travel bug, and then I started doing study abroad semesters. And my final study abroad semester was in Australia, in Sydney, where we've just launched actually a campus weeks ago. Um, and so, which is also an amazing city in the world. So that's where I went for my final study abroad, and I actually loved it. I mean, coming from Canada, and I have family there, and coming from Canada with our beautiful winters, I have to admit that I quite liked their lack of winters. And I thought I want to stay in Australia. This is amazing. But as a student there, you have to apply for your like long-term stay, whatever, from somewhere else. So I thought, okay, well, I love education, and I'd love to get a job in education, and the UK has a notoriously amazing global education market. And that's when I was like, okay, I've got a 2-year sort of visa that you can get as a common law citizen. I'm gonna hop over to England for this 8-month period whilst I apply for my permanent Aussie residency. Did this stint at the university in Chicago. And honestly, I never looked back. I think London is, um, it's just so excited. I feel it's so arrogant to say, but like you feel like you're literally in the center of the universe. I think it's because of all the flights and trains. Like you can get everywhere really easily. There's so much culture here. There's so much sport here, art, concerts. So I came here, but I tell people I came for the weekend and I've stayed for over 2 decades. But in earnest, I came for 8 months. But I stayed over 2 decades, regularly visiting Canada. But yeah, London's definitely home. It's kind of a cool city.
It really is. And interestingly, I mean, most of our graduates end up in Ontario and Toronto in that area. But the other two big pockets of grads that we have are in New York and in London. because of the really dynamic business communities in both those cities. And probably it has a lot to do with the global nature of both those cities and that they do attract people and commerce from all over the world. So I'll switch topics again a little bit and get to the last one I wanted to talk to you about. You have students all over the world at multiple campuses. You've been in this business a while now. I'm sure you get questions all the time about from the students about how you get into a job in the world of sport and what tips or advice you might have for someone who's interested in a career in sport. And so, what do you tell them?
I tell them to come to GIS and join one of our programs. I
I
think,
teed that up for you a little bit, but beyond the
but
obvious of take a GIS program or enroll in the new Toronto MBA.
absolutely
Yeah,
enroll in the Toronto MBA. Um, but I say that in jest, but I say that sincerely because um, one of the real driving forces that I had when we were building GIS and before that at UCFB was to democratize access into the industry. It is one of those industries still where it's often who you know, or you're an ex-player, so they give you a job in the ticketing office and so on and so forth. And it really does require you will excel if you've got specialist knowledge. It is a really different business model. Revenue comes so strongly from like broadcasting deals, for example, and merch and ticketing. And like one of the examples I give people now, I don't know how much you know about cricket, but in cricket, where you've got like test matches, the amount of matches that you actually play or the actual amount of days, right, that these matches happen for can vary, right? So you might end up having 25 days of play. You might end up having 20 days of play. That really changes your revenue model and you can't prepare for it because what happens on the field happens on the field. So all this specialist knowledge is really important. And who you know, unfortunately, is still quite important. And so coming to somewhere like one of our campuses, doing our MBA program, that does help you both gain the specialist knowledge but also get the network, and really start tapping into the people who are in the industry, and it does help you get a leg up, especially when you're specially trained. I think the employers, given how fast paced the industry is, when they see someone who's specifically studied it, and who has done a project already with somebody in the industry, and who genuinely has done cases and understands what's going on, it's so much faster to get up to speed. And yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted sport. Definitely not. But I always say like it doesn't feel like a job. You're working in an industry that people pay a lot of money to be there, and you're actually getting paid to be there. So if it's something you're passionate about, getting a job in the industry is kind of the dream, because you get to, never sort of work a day in your life. But it takes work, right? You need to understand the nuance, and you do need to get to know the people. I think that's really, really helpful. So yeah, I would say, come do the MBA if you're interested.
well, I think that's an interesting point because our students are not afraid of competition. They're aiming for jobs in Wall Street or the city in London or Bay Street in Toronto, ad agencies. I mean, the private equity firms and so on. These are really hard jobs to get. They're always super
Yep.
competitive. Sport is just another one of those. But I have heard that just for some entry level jobs, the big organizations get thousands of applications, and so it's hard to stand out among thousands if you don't have that background in sport, some of that specialist knowledge, and hopefully some sort of experiential learning where you did complete a project or work with one of the teams or have some kind of I don't know, opportunities to stand out that you wouldn't get in most programs.
Absolutely. And it helps to learn. I've heard lots of sort of thoughts about the fact that all of our campuses are in these amazing stadiums, but that's not for the gimmick. That's actually for the exposure. I often talk about and love University of Toronto, loved my leafy green law school, beautiful, where I did my degree. But when I graduated, I was not prepared to be an actual lawyer, right? It's different when you're studying something and then when you're actually doing something. And so I've always said, like, this is an opportunity almost to have your hand held in situ, right?
Right.
And you're getting trained in situ. And you can physically see and contextualize, and you're in the halls, when other people are in the halls. Um, and so it makes that transition into industry very different because you're not studying outside of the industry, you're studying within the industry. And so when you cut the umbilical cord, so to speak, it's not really drastic. And so I believe that like the immersion into these inspirational campuses is a genuine difference maker to the results. And
Yeah.
GIS has now been ranked number one in the world from Sports Business Magazine, their postgrads 6 years in a row. We get students in jobs. And I'd love to think that it's all us, but one, we have very, very competitive students who I think are up to the task as we will. And two, it's because I think we're putting them in the right situations. So you're in situ, you've got a great network, you're getting a great degree. That at least should give you the best possible chance of getting those
Right.
jobs.
Yeah, well, this is kind of my philosophy on business education in general is experiential learning is the way of the future. Immersion as much as you can into the kinds of situations that you'll be working in when you graduate. It's why we have a, student investment fund that works with real dollars and a venture capital fund that works with real dollars alongside venture capitalists. So students get that experience. We have all these pitch competitions. Our co-op program is one of the biggest in the country, the biggest, I think, among business schools. And all those things are really about trying to get students, like you say, in situ or into
Yeah.
the opportunities where they get to
Was it the
try these
first
things for
co-op program? I feel like it might have been the first co-op
in business,
program.
it may have been the first. It's certainly today the largest in terms of student participation and numbers of students, because even though we have close to 6,500, maybe a little bit more than that students right now, we still have 60% in co-op. And so if you run into a co-op student in Ontario, there's a pretty good chance they come from Lazaridis.
That's awesome. I did that, by the way. I thought, and I agree. I think that was one of my inspirations. This is my point, is, I think Laurier and Lazaridis and how it operates has always been my inspiration for the specifics in sport. But you're right. I think it is the future, right? It's bringing the classroom to the person, basically.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to September when we open the doors to the first class, and oh, it's going to be a real, I think a real splash and a real bonus for the students, for the school. I mean, it's just it's an exciting thing to for us to be launching, and we did it pretty quickly. We started talking last spring, and here we go. We're launching it
That's all
this
down to
fall.
you. I have to say, I was going to say thank you for letting us change your mind. And I think when you make your mind up about something, you make it happen.
Well,
So we're really
it's
fortunate.
this is definitely quick in the world of universities,
Yes.
but yeah, like you said, I think the timing is right, and so we're excited about it. That actually takes up the time that we've allocated for the podcast. Is there any last insights or ideas you want to share with our audience?
Oh, not really, but just to, I guess, it's so great to feel, connected, and to stay connected to Lazaridis, and it's been amazing with all the events that you guys have been holding and all the efforts that you've been making, I think, to bring alumni closer to the fold. It has been so incredible for all of us. It's such a close community. There's nowhere like Lazaridis. And so just a big shout out really to all the current students and the alumni. And it's just really nice to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you again at some point, probably in the fall once we've got it up and running, and we can bring some insights to everyone about how things are going. It's yeah, I keep saying I'm excited about it, but it's hard to just I feel like I'm waiting for Christmas. It's gonna be great.
Tell me about it.
Okay, thanks again.
Thanks.